and takes a win. Wilkinson in second, but Luce Adegis takes an absolute superb win. We'll distill and break down exactly what's happened in the studio. But over to you guys. I need a bit of a rest. That was pretty special.
Wow, what a race. That looked hard. And I say that as someone who, like many of you, will probably be facing exactly the same course in tomorrow's community ZRL divisions. Yeah, that's going to be tough. Splitting on the first KOM after just 13 kilometres, down to just 29 riders, yet more shed by the end of the first lap, and then that brutal finale. What a finish from Luis Adegis there, making it 2 from 2, like Matt and Hannah said. We've got the finishing results now, I gather. So this will be for the individual riders first and foremost. There we go then, confirmation that Adegis gets it ahead of Mary Wilkinson from Canyon Esports. Shayna Paulus there in third. Vicky Whitelaw from Team Hino in fourth. Julia Shallout, she was the the lap record holder, you'll remember from prior to this race. Then we've got Tammy Miller. She was phenomenally strong up that final KOM, but didn't quite get the gap needed to take her all the way to the line. There's 3 Canyon Esports riders very ominously in that top 10. So it's going to be interesting to see when we get the team results whether they have managed to take the win this time around, or indeed whether Adegis Aeonian team have managed to get that again for the second week running. Some interesting tactics at play there. Now, we spoke to Adegis earlier on today. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to show you the interview in the pre-race show, but she was talking about tactics and how they were going to weigh it up as a team prior to tonight and during the race itself as to whether or not she would be going for the intermediate sprints like last week, whether she was going to try and just hide in the wheels and then go for the final sprint. And it looked, to my mind at least, like she was waiting for that final sprint finish. Now, I believe we've got the team results in now, so we can just head over and take a look at those. Canyon Esports, there we go. That ominous 3 riders in the top 10 meant they get a pretty sizable 117 points. Hino Racing, second for the second consecutive week. Aeonian Race Team there in third this week. Team 2024 in fourth. And then Beast Mode, powered by Rose, in fifth there as well. Right. The men's race is very nearly upon us already. So Matt has not had much time, in fact, to get his breath back. Will Canyon Esports be able to do the double this week? No doubt the men's team are going to be out for blood after unfortunately missing out.
20 seconds. whether it's speed skating or rowing or cross-country skiing. You see them doing very well back here. So, Matt, let me throw it back to you. We've got the group together. I think really the first critical point comes up here at that sprint arch at 11.7K. This is Ollie Jones that we're looking at now there in New Zealand.
Yeah, Ollie Jones looking good, comfortable, sat in the middle of that group. Again, makes it look very, very easy. Just cruising along there, just over 4 watts a kilo, touching nearly 400 watts then. But that was really interesting when we saw, it wasn't only Kirkmare there, Dave, that we saw drop that anvil power up. Just looking, there was several other riders who had it. And did you see what it did? They were moving back through the group very, very quickly indeed. So even on a flat bit of road, if you deploy that at the wrong time, it's going to put you on the back foot. We saw Mary Wilkinson talked about it with Hannah in the previous race. Mary Wilkinson did exactly the same thing, and she dropped straight to the back of the group and briefly lost the wheel. Very, very intriguing indeed.
You know, we talked about marginal gains, Matt, for a decade now. How about marginal losses? Because this is certainly something in the world of Zwift that's going to be absolutely critical. You cannot afford to miss a step out here. I see the restart jersey there. Watch out for both Jamrosik and Jaeger, Jaden Jaeger. Again, this is not a classic climb. This is not like in Tour de France. And how about the exciting news for Tour de France Femme avec Zwift coming out this week? But this is not about that long, sustained 20-minute climbing effort. This is, again, more of a classics type climb. You're not going to be engaged with it for, anywhere near the 20 minutes. There's another rider to watch today out of Wales, Howell Davis on the Wahoo LaCole team. You can see that blue, magenta and pink jersey there. I expect them to be animating things out here today. As we take a look at the group together, I'm expecting, Matt, that this run into the first sprint, we're going to see a split immediately after before we get on to the climb. We talk about the aqueduct, but really it's Petit KOM where most of the damage is going to be done out here. Back to the front of the group, and they're on cue. Jaden Jaeger racing out of Wisconsin. Now, he's a master national champion here in the United States. He's known as a dominant time trialist. This guy is a watt monster.
He certainly is. I think you might have just heard that. You might be listening to a commentary, plenty of national champs jerseys on the wall there, out of the saddle, as Jaden Jaeger. But I did see another rider while you were just waxing lyrical a moment ago, Dave. There was a rider from BZR Sports Solid, Jasper Pardians, who also dropped a anvil, and I could just see him drifting back. Well, it's more than drifting back. He was dropping back like a stone through that group on this early flat section. I think this is going to be a real wake-up call. I do hope that we see the anvil used on some of these more rolling courses in the future. Got to imagine the anvil in another season on the New York course for argument's sake. You really have to time it there. It's like a roller coaster, isn't it? Okay, that's for another day perhaps, but it's a food for thought. Certainly a lot for the guys to discuss on the sofa post-race as well. But once you've felt the power of the anvil, or the adverse power of the anvil, you're going to make sure you hit your power up button at exactly the right time. That is for sure. So 5.1 kilometers under the belts of these riders so far. The speed pretty high, but the efforts really compacted into the second part of this particular course. It's a big circuit, big lap, 22.8 Ks, but the Pavé sprint, as Dave said, and the aqueduct climb, followed up by the Petit climb, all come in relatively close proximity. So Dave, it really is, to coin a commentator's cliche, it really is a circuit of two distinct halves.
Yeah, a tale of two stories, right, Matt? I want to go back to what you were talking about with Jasper Pardians. He's, when you look at it, he's a 72 kilo rider, but he can make massive numbers. There's another guy, Eddie Oily, the South African on Toyota Cryo up near the front. They're going to keep the pace very, very high coming into this first sprint. It's worth noting that the points on offer out here, Matt, you do talk about the different sectors out here. Well, there's a lot of points to be picked up at these sprints. We take all of the KOM points, which scores 5, 3, 2, and 1. So that only scores 4 deep, whereas with the bonus sprints that we've got out here, 10 points on offer, maximum bonification. And then we work our way down from 10 to 8 to 6 to 5, and then it counts down straight to 1 from there. As 8 riders will collect points. So more riders collecting points in the sprints, that's going to be very, very bad. That will make the difference, no doubt about it, when we tell the final story at the end of the last chapter. This is a Just van den Bosch that we're in. Now, there's a lot of teams, Matt, that are looking to make their mark out here, and Finesse Esports is certainly one of them. Remember, this is the team of Christopher McGlinchey, who is more than a dark horse today. He's a Palomino. He could do anything out here today, I would say. And McGlinchey out of Northern Ireland is one of the riders I'd keep my eye on in the finale, Matt.
Yeah, McGlinchey making the transfer over to that squad from Vitus. He's won some big esports races in the past. He's a very, very accomplished road rider as well. And I do think this course will suit him. And I do think the distance will suit him as well. We see some of these league races, these Zwift races, around 40 minutes. This is one of the longest at 46 Ks. We saw the women do a very, very respectable average speed. They just over an hour and 4 minutes, 46 Ks. That's going to equate to around 44.5 Ks an hour, which is very, very quick indeed, as we get a lovely look at this beautiful French vista. Mont Saint-Michel over to the north of your screen. A few sheep scattered about. It almost makes you, Dave, want to sit back, pop up a picnic table, get a baguette, and have a glass of red wine. It really does. And look at that big the hay bale display of a bike as well. They've really put a lot of work into rendering this world, haven't they?
I couldn't agree more. As a matter of fact, I think this might be the best course that we race on all year long, no doubt about it. And Matt, you're right. I'd go for a croissant right now, to tell you the truth. It's a little earlier here in the United States. Yes. So how about a cup of coffee would be nice as well. But look at this, Matt. It's getting a little bit rugged at the back of the group. We talk about, you can see another anvil being deployed in the middle of the field there. So this is an interesting day. As an American, I feel like the burrito is inappropriately being used for this power-up, to tell you the truth. We love burritos so much here. So 2.5 meters around you. So if you were to see someone, there you go, a couple burritos being deployed. So there's no draft coming off of that rider for 10 seconds. And that's 2.5 meters. So that's very close to 10 feet. The anvil lasts for 30 seconds, and there's no doubt that will be a game changer here today. Draft, and you saw that was perfectly used by, well, both Julia Chalau and Luz as she wins the race with absolute awesome gameplay by the Dutch woman there to win in our women's race just a few minutes ago. But back to you, Matt, as we take a look at the front of the group. That sprint coming up in, let's call it 2.5K.
2.5 Ks, yep. We've got a good PIP. Picture of Chris Yip there, the Canadian, riding for the world of elite Zwifters. They had a very good ride last week. Remember there, Leandro Mesenio of Argentina in 4th place. So they've got some very, very good riders up their sleeve. As we get our first look at Lionel Villasan rolling up here. Just moving to the front, getting himself in a good position. It's a pretty decent move. This is riding alongside Veals there, Wool as well. So Cryo RDT now moving through to the front. But good to see Lionel Villasan. Again, very consistent. And there he is, right on cue, headband on, smiling. It's Dave, he's smiling at us at just under 6 watts a kilo. I mean, it's almost rude.
Well, this man is absolute legend status in the world of esports. They call him the Duck. He owns a duck that's probably within about 20 meters of him right now. I think that his duck, Gilbert, probably hanging out right outside of his pain cave here. Lionel, such an interesting story. He was one of, without a doubt, the most dominant riders throughout the first 3 seasons of the ZRL. He since, now you see the Belgian flag there. Lionel is in Belgium, but is identifying now as a Croatian when it comes to his nationality. There's so many interesting things that happen in the world of esports, and I have a feeling, well, so we were talking about Jasper a little bit earlier. There's a few Belgian riders. Kiel Power is another on the next team. Kiel Power can make 6 watts, and again, Matt, I'm not saying this incorrectly, 6 watts per kilo is his 20-minute power. That is out of this stratosphere when you think about it. And Lionel Villasan is one of the guys that lives in that same neighborhood. If Lionel goes out of the top 10 today, I will be stunned. And absolutely, this could be his breakthrough win. You notice that Lionel Villasan plays all of his cards correctly at this point. He is sitting in the sweet spot of this group. You don't see Lionel dropping any anvils or burritos right now. He is laser focused on getting a result for his Canyon team, and Canyon has been the most impressive squad that we have seen. And I must say, when you look at it, the teams that have dominated in the past, not all of them have been able to hold on to that spot that they've got on top of the mountain. But Canyon doing a really good job to start this season. There's another Belgian rider to watch. Without any question, Belgium as a nationality comes in as the strongest country, Matt, in my mind. Leonard Tugels, we've seen him put together some stunning breakaway rides. Would not be so. If you give this man 2 seconds with 2K to go, you're not bringing Leonard back.
Yeah, Tugels, very talented indeed. Rides on the road at a continental level as well. So this sort of distance will be no problem at all. Out of the saddle there, 6.2 watts a kilo, making sure he's keeping himself in a good position. If you notice that you have just joined us, this is the Zwift Racing League Round 2. We're in France, one of the longest races of this league this particular season. But we've got an attacker, actually, an early move by the South African Eddie Hull from Toyota Cryo RDT, kicking out just under 9 watts a kilo. Gone very, very early indeed, but he's been brought back to heel very, very quickly by the combined might of Christopher Thiem of Beast Mode. And again, that man, Lionel Villasan, keen to try and make sure that his Canyon Esports teammates are going to score some serious points here. Remember, the sprint points carry more points than the King of the Mountains. And look at this, lots of drafts being dropped now. But burritos are plenty as well. Honda moves to the front. John Worm is there. Michael Voigt now moved across, of course, from over to Canyon Esports. He's accelerating well, 11.6 watts a kilo. He's keeping that gap. Vuyasan, those go straight over the top. Voigt is still there too, though. But frankly, I think neck and neck for World of Elite Swifters. That was very close indeed. I think Almeida Franklin of the World of Elite Swifters, Dave, took that one. But that was very, very evenly matched. Superb ride by the Brazilian.
Franklin Almeida is really the pride of South America right now. When you look at that World Elite Swifters presented by Oral 7 team, they also have Leonardo Messino, who's a bit talent. Now we see Brian Duffy Jr. moving up to the front. This is the dangerous moment that comes right after that first bonus sprint. So we'll take a look at how that one scored. But certainly some of the big names, the usual suspects were up there, including Ollie Jones, who looks like he's on a rampage out here right now. The New Zealanders, certainly after that inspiring win by James Barnes last week, and let's take a look. So it is going to be Lionel Villasan getting up for third, but it's John Vanham picking up 8 points for second. Franklin Almeida, the Brazilian there, takes top bonification. Christoph Thiem were fourth, and then you can see how the rest of our, nice to see there, the names that are already contesting for points. And Canyon, though, if you look at it, nearly, I think exactly equaling the 10 points there, as this is a team sport. Let's take a look at a replay of that sprint, Matt.
It was a very, very well contested sprint. Lots of points on offer, as we said before the sprint. This is the group just coming around the corner. Nice slow motion there. To an appreciative crowd as well. With the Brazilian on the line, just about taking, well, in fact, he got that one by a length, but 3 riders from Canyon Esports in the top 8 there. It's all about getting your riders to the front. Remember, although this is what we call a scratch race, the first rider across the line wins, it's actually a points race. That is what it is all about. As Dave explained earlier on, points on offer at the King of the Mountains, points on offer at the sprint, and 50 points all the way down to 30th place offered across the line with the final. Canyon Esports, 1 point in front. And without further ado, we're on to the opening King of the Mountains of the day. This is the Aqueduct climb, 400 very short meters, done at a pace averaging 5%, but significantly, once they turn right, as they're doing now with Lorio on the front, it is a flat sprint finish. But Akita now, the Japanese rider, using the van drive to good effect. Looks like he's going to take it. It's just been overtaken, I think, by Lorio. So Teppo Lorio of Finland from Wahoo Lakol took maximum points on the top there. Lorio, maximum points. Akita and then Ueda in second place. And then Davis, Hugh Davis, the Welshman, in fourth there. So interesting. 2 teams, Dave, that held back on the sprint, coming to the fore in the King of the Mountains.
Right now in Tokyo, Japan, it's about 2 o'clock in the morning, and these Japanese riders are hitting with authority. How about Ueda Hiroki and Ikeda Takaro, as they are both up in the mix? This is a big moment for the Zwift Warrior cycling team, and that's really good to see. As we take a look again at this front group, this is battle royale mode at this point. A little bit of a regrouping happening out here as we're out on lap 1 proper, but that climb, that was simply an appetizer. Those were the escargot before we dig into I don't even know what the main course will be tonight. Some type of steak, I would think. But let's take a look at a replay, Matt.
Yeah, maybe the coq au vin, Dave. Let's have a look at the replay.
That sounds good.
Here's the sprint coming round the final corner. It was a great move. Wahoo Cole riders just overhauling Akita on the line. But a really interesting, I think we've seen a battle quite like this. Just two teams getting involved in taking all the points. It just shows at this sort of level, it is very difficult to double up, especially when there's not too much of a gap in between the sprints. And that's why I quite like the uneven imbalance of this race. It really makes you think, focusing your effort, but clearly doubling up with those sorts of efforts, very difficult. Still, Canada Sports with 11, World Elite Swifters with 10, Team Swedish Swifters with 8, Wahoo Cole 6, Beast Mode Powered by Rose with 5, Equal with Swift Warriors, then Fusion with 4, Draft with 1, as we head closer to the foot of this long climb of the day. The Petit climb. Dave, talk us through the stats of this climb. It's not super steep, but it's really draining, isn't it?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I tell you what, Matt, you have that moment when your spider senses are tingling, and you take a look at the riders on the front of this group. This is going to be an absolute explosion. You're 100% correct. This is not one of the hardest climbs on Zwift, and certainly it's going to be the racers making the race, because this is the template that they've been given to work with. And now you're going to see an absolute explosion, as this is your sector where you can really have an impact. You see, we talked about Stefan Kirchmeier, the Austrian rider here, as his franchise now is looking to make their mark in this season. We already noticed that the Zwift Warriors, they're clearly coming to race their skin off out here today. And now we're going in with Teppo Lorio. He's the Finnish rider here. A little bit of a throwback. I think you might have just gotten a hat exactly like that from Johan Museu the other day. One of those classic Mape hats, Matt. I thought that was one of my favorite moments at Worlds this year in Belgium with you. That's not the same hat. You didn't give it to Teppo, did you?
Well, I've mislaid it. I wonder if Teppo was, got some contacts in my house. But no, it's Teppo Lower with that classic cap from the late 1990s. It was great to have Johan Museu on stage, battling with myself, Ross Downing, and the local barman as well. It was quite strange, but mostly it was absolutely wonderful to have a legend like that riding on Zwift. But no, clearly a very iconic cap. It's really great when the greatest riders in the world are kind of happy to embrace this new virtual world as well. This community on Zwift just keeps building and building, bringing people together from all over the world. And what better example than, as you just talked about before, 2 o'clock in the morning in Japan, in Tokyo, Takada Akita, well, it's like he's riding in the middle of the day, isn't it? Happy to really get stuck. And clearly there must be at some little bit of a disadvantage, but they're really absolutely flying. And Takata Akita, over the last couple of years, Dave, for me, has been one of the revelations, because he's a very light rider, just at about 60 kilos. But even in the sprints, not just the climbs, he really does pack a punch, doesn't he? Remember, 3rd place a couple of seasons ago up in Innsbruck as well. So an exceptional rider, but they also ride very well together as a unit too.
I've nicknamed him Unami because he brings the flavor without any doubt. We need more racers like Takato, that's for sure. And you got to give the Japanese guys credit for punching way above their weight. Here's another danger man, no doubt, Vidar Mel on Movistar. Movistar has assembled quite a team out here. I love the process last year that helped develop this team on the men's and the women's side. I know that Beth McKeever is another rider who's really made the most of this opportunity, and it's great to see. But we get a good look at the Belgian, I think pretty much the Norwegian sitting in his comfort zone right now, right where he wants to be. And he's up in the front selection. You can see the Belgian, Lionel Viassen there, Pim van Diem, the Dutch rider, Christopher McGlinchey out of Ireland. These are the usual suspects. How about Spencer Segerbruch there out of St. Louis, Missouri, having a fantastic ride. So if you want to talk about modus operandi, when you look at the next insured team, it sounds like a law firm, to tell you the truth. Thrall, Duffy, and Power. You would not want to get sued by those guys. And certainly, I have a feeling that they're going to, if they can put 3 in the top 10 today, I won't be surprised. But that's really been the name of the game for Canyon, Matt, hasn't it? At the end of the race, they're always there. Don't expect anything different today.
Yep, definitely. And there'll be there's a new benchmark, wasn't it, set last week by Next Esports, powered by Insured, as you just said. Thrall, Barnes and Duffy all finishing in the top 10, first, third and ninth. It was quite a remarkable performance. And interestingly, Barnes' average watts per kilo for last week's race, 4.6 watts a kilo. As Ed Laverick now has chinned off the front from Wahoo Lacole, 8.3 watts a kilo for the Welshman, looking good. Turgles behind has opened up a nice little lead of 1.2 seconds now, 18.5 kilometres still to go. Next time through, we will have the belt. Still a long way to go on this climb, but Laverick has gone very, very early. And I tell you what, Dave, he's a very, very popular rider. 122 ride-ons. Fire up your companion and give this guy some encouragement. He's been caught now by Turgles. Two of them clear now. Brian Duffy Jr. in third. Turgles, Dave, straight over the top.
Well, I was going to say hashtag Ed mode, as Ed is an incredibly popular rider. You're absolutely right, Matt. But Leonard Tugels has now gone into Tugels mode, as this Brazilian is a huge threat. This is a big moment. Every race has one. And here we are, folks. We're out on lap number 1 of 2. This is Leonard Tugels. Matt, you mentioned earlier that he's got in real life pro Conti experience. There have been some weekends here in the ZRL where Leonard Tugels has raced in a classic or a semi-classic on a Sunday and been racing with us on Mondays. We love having this Belgian in the mix, and right now he's putting them all in the hurt locker as this man goes beast mode out here. As this is, again, Leonard Tugels that we're with on the BZR Sports Solid team, one of many talented Belgian riders in our field.
It certainly is. Look at him just focused there. 8 watts a kilo, just holding around 500 watts, just under, out of the saddle. That, for many riders, is the most efficient way to do it. We're going to hit some pave again. Then we have another 2 hairpins before we crest the top of this climb. There's that little bit of a plateau before we drop down. It just eases here ever so briefly before kicking up again. So 1% gradient round. Then the gradient kicks again. Leonard Tugels kicks again. He's got a gap of 5.5 seconds now. No wonder. Very difficult to match such a ferocious pace. 8 watts a kilo, holding 500 watts up this climb. You can see what he's still got to take on this climb. This is where the hairpin bends. Just tighten up a little bit. One more hairpin after this one, and he's crested this climb, and he will take maximum points. Please fire up your companion apps. Give this guy a ride on. This is entertainment. This is esports racing at its best. Turgles Dave takes maximum points at the top of this climb, and it looks to me as if he's going to carry this effort over the top as well.
Here comes Stefan Kirchmeier. The Austrian is hit out with authority. But Leonard Tugels right now, with that effort, he has dimmed the power grid in Paris. Right now, I don't even think you could get your microwave to work if you're on the Champs-Elysees. As we take a look now at Stefan Kirchmeier coming forward, that's going to be Daniel Jemrosik, another one of the talented restart riders here. Let's see what we've got. Oh, boy, here comes next. That's going to be last week's winner, James Barnes out of New Zealand, the incredibly popular OG Zwifter. James Barnes was one of the first guys. I mean, he was in Zwift when it was on beta, but again, you go back to the front. This is the Tête de la Corsa, and Leonard Tugels just now being caught as Anders Voldagger. Now, the Danish riders are moving forward here. Matt, it is on like Donkey Kong here today in the ZRL.
It certainly is, but look at the anvils being dropped here. Thrall and Voldagger getting in the aero tuck with the added impetus of the anvil, which makes these riders heavier for 30 seconds. Just maximising on that steep section before the road levels out again. So Thrall here we're looking at on the front. The air goes straight over the top, straight into that aero tuck. And we have some significant splits opening up. They really are stretching out the lead. The front group of around, well, we've got still around 30 riders in this group, but several have been detached. We've got Bruce Bird from Canada at 16 seconds. So there's around 40 riders left. It's essentially split in half over the top of that climb as we get a bit of a regroupment now. Canon Esports with 11 points. World of Elite Swifters with 10. Team Swedish Swifters with 8. Wahoo Lacole with 6. Beast Mode 5. Zwift Warriors 5. BZR Sports Solid 5. Fusion ECT 4. Kirchmeier with 3, and then Restart Racing rounding out the top 10 so far on today's race with 2 points. So lots of riders using and deploying that anvil to very, very good effect. Lots of thumbs up, lots of ride-ons being used, but we have quite a selection here, Dave.
Yeah, more riders got dropped than you'd see in a Las Vegas divorce court today in the last couple of minutes here. This has been absolutely brutal as we get a little bit of regrouping out here right now as we get ready to head out on lap number 2. Lap number 2 is where the final nails will be driven home out here. You start doing some inventory and taking a look at the teams that have 3 or more riders in this group. So certainly looking for that Canyon jersey out here. Movistar having a solid day. Restart, Pio Auto looking good. I see a few Kirkmeyer jerseys. But boy, take one last breath here now as we move into the finale. What an exciting opening half of this race it has been. 46.6K total out here today. And Matt, this one is still a wide open affair.
Yeah, and just looking at the distance still to go, they've just gone under the Flamme Rouge. We did have that little neutral rollout from the pen, so it looks as if we are going to go under the hour for this distance. 46.64 Ks, as you just said, with an added bit of neutral, 28 minutes and 50 seconds. We're going to cross the line in probably about 30 seconds, 40 seconds or so, as Odin starts to go clear now. We have around, let's have a little look, we have 35 riders in this front group. We've got 2 chasers, Gavin Dempster and Kjell Farah of Casse. Sorry, it's Gavin Dempster and Kjell Power chasing McGlinchey. Mike Cumming are riders that are out the back, floundering on this course at 19 and 20 seconds respectively. So that's a big, big shake-up. And some of the riders, Dave, we expect to be in the front now really struggling and they've got a big, big chase on your hands as Paul Odlin now starts to move clear.
Yeah, this is a big move for Paul here, and welcome to the big time as Paul Odlin now will, I think, send shockwaves back through the group. That's one of the danger men, Ofdal there, the Norwegian down the Casse team, another rider that should be shortlisted as a favorite when this one is done and dusted. But right now, Paul Odlin out of New Zealand on the World Elite Swifters Oral 7 team is he's throwing more coal on the fire right now as this gap has gone up over 7 seconds. You can see some big names leading the chase, and that would be ominous. There's the Canadian Thomas Thrall. Leonard Tugels is up there. Jaden Yeager, boy, some big engines. These guys aren't diesels. They're nuclear-powered racers that we're looking at. And Paul, right now, looking still at about a 7-second gap.
He's opened things up quite nicely there. We have an unexpected little attack there. Perhaps since there was a bit of a lull, carried that momentum through and is now attack clear. He's eased off a little bit, 3.5 watts a kilo, but that again, that's just under 300 watts. A nice cadence there of 96 RPM, 106 beats per minute, 20 power-ups. Not 20 power-ups, that's incorrect. 20 ride-ons, should I say. So please make sure you give this rider some extra boosts. There you go, they're starting to clock up now. Fire up your companion app and give any rider that you wish some ride-ons. Give them that little bit of extra adrenaline. But Odlin, his lead has now started to drop. We've got a chase behind. Vidal Mel on the front for the Movistar E-Team. 2.2 seconds. And on this particular flat section, with momentum in the bunch, Dave, it's so hard for an individual rider to maintain that sort of power for too long. And it does look as if he's going to be caught very, very shortly. Brought back to heel by the remnants of this peloton, which has shattered. Just confirming the amount of riders in this front group. 35 riders.
2 names come to mind right now, Matt. One of them is Ryan Larson. He has done a tremendous job of staying in this group, but not burning 1 extra calorie out there. The other is the South African on Toyota Cryo RDT, that being Eddie Houle. Big talent and done a really good job up to this point. Now, still remembering that this onslaught, I mean, it is going to be pandemonium. I mean, I would even expect the aqueduct is where things start getting chippy out there before it goes absolutely ballistic on Petit KOM. I have a feeling, Matt, this might be one of the very few occasions where our winner of the race is alone when it comes across the line. And I'm talking about a couple-second advantage rather than sprinting out of a group. And here's a man that could do exactly that for a team that is in fuego right now when you look at Movistar and the Pim van Diemen, the Dutch rider here. Look at Movistar, so well positioned right now, Matt.
Yeah, Movistar looking very, very good. 3 riders across the front of this peloton, this drastically reduced peloton. It's rare that we see the men's group split so quickly, but that climb was absolutely brutal. A couple of riders on the front just really trying to make that difference. And only a certain class of rider can maintain 6 watts a kilo for so long. And that's why we saw that big, big selection as Pim van Diemen, the Dutchman, riding for the Spanish Movistar team, mops his brow and settles into a rhythm. at around 3.5 watts per kilo. 21 ride-ons for the rider from the Netherlands as we try and make a sense of the composition of this group. We've definitely got a couple of riders there from Canyon Esports, Spencer Segeruk, Ollie Jones and Lionel Vujasan. At least 3 from Movistar, including the man on your screen, Van Diemen and Vidar Mel, who made a transfer this season, or the off-season, should I say, from Casse Esports. Hugh Davis is there for Wahoo Nicole, but Jan Rostic, the American now, has gone clear. Another attack. This is proving to be a really aggressive race. And if you have just joined us, you are watching round 2 of the Zwift Racing League, the ZRL. We're in France, and we're in the men's race, and we only have 20 kilometers to go. But crucially, we have another sprint which offers up points to King of the Mountains before the finish in the Marina.
You can see how familiar the PO Auto kit in that greenish color is to the Restart kit. Restart has both Jaden Yeager and Daniel Jimrosek up in this group, and they seem to be taking turns at just trying to soften things up out here. I don't know that that's actually possible with a group this strong. Daniel Gould, the Swiss rider on Movistar, is the other man that I would really be watching for. When push comes to shove and that final time up Petit KOM, only the strong survive. This will be a true OSS situation on one of the more challenging climbs that we see this season in the ZRL.
Yeah, definitely. Jan Rostic has been brought back to heel after that short foray off the front. Just under 19.5 kilometres still to go. Still around 4 or 5 Ks till we get to that last intermediate sprint. And then in rapid succession of those 2 climbs, as Dave and myself talked about earlier on, it is really a circuit of 2 halves. A flat opening circuit, flat to gently undulating, should I say. And then we have we have the sprint, then the short, sharp climb, only 400 metres, the aqueduct climb, and then we have the longer affair of the Petit climb, 2.7 Ks, and that tops out with only 3.2 kilometres to go as we look at Daniel Gould looking good here for Movistar. Loving that kit. It's such a good squad, and they're happy to go and get the transfers. They're clearly keeping a keen eye on the riders to watch, because they've made some really interesting acquisitions, haven't they, off-season in both the men's and the women's teams.
Yeah, and you got to give credit. Canyon deserves that same pat on the back for supporting both sides of the sport. We take a lot of pride in that at Zwift, that's for sure. And, well, let me just reference the Tour de France Feminine coming up avec Zwift this year. Everyone's so excited about that. Daniel Gould's got to be excited. He's in with a good shot to get not only a win today for himself, but a win for his team. And I think, Matt, that's something worth just revisiting very quickly. This does look like a standard bike race, but it is a points race. We've got the KOM sprints and our bonus sprints along the way where the points all add up, and there's a significant number of points. If you don't participate in the bonuses, you really don't have a chance to win the overall on the day. 20 points are awarded for the team that garners the most points through all of our sprints, our King of the Mountains, and the finishing points. Yeah, the lion's share of those points all wait at the finish line. It's stacked up really heavily. To give you some perspective, if you win a King of the Mountain, you'll pick up 5 points. If you win a sprint, you'll pick up 10. If you win the race, you'll pick up 50 points for first. Second place getting 40 points, 35 for third, 30 for fourth. And then it starts to tighten up as we make our way through the top 30 riders that score. We do have Jaden Yeager in a breakaway right now. This man out of Wisconsin is absolutely relentless. This multi-time U.S. national champion, always ready to give it a go. And right now it is full gas on the front. The gap going up to 1 second. You can see that Vidar Mel, and he's deploying it. Look, that's going to be the heat map behind him, the draft map that we're looking at. And you can see that that's going to be Vidar Mel, the Norwegian, getting right up into it.
Straight through the centre there. That's where the maximum draft is behind Jaeger. And then we saw a little bit of the trace of the heat map from Vidar Mel himself. 12th in the world, the first ever esports world championships. He is a former national champion, esports Zwift champion of Norway as well. But Mel has joined up with Jaeger. They've only got a short little lead, a narrow lead of 3 seconds. But this is good. This really is it's when one rider out on their own, as we know, on Zwift racing is so difficult to stay away. But 2 riders we've seen succeed on a number of occasions. Still a long way to go, but Dave, they are opening up a little bit of a lead here. It was 2.5 seconds. Now it's 3.7. Total's the rider behind, and he's dropped an anvil on this little slight downhill bit here. It's only a modest bit of downhill, but fascinating stuff.
So, Matt, my guess is that these guys will stay away until 34.7K. Add one more meter to that, and they probably get caught. I think that this is a bid to pick up the 10 points waiting at the sprint arch. That's at 34.7K. Let's see if they can hold on to get those points. There's no way Vidar Mel is a huge talent. We've talked a lot about Jaden Yeager. These guys are up for the battle, no question. But I have a feeling this is a play for sprint points more than for the finale of the race.
It certainly could be, but they're slowly but surely stealing a little bit more of a lead. A couple more meters have been taken by Vidar Mel of Norway, of Movistar, and Jaden Yeager, the American, for Restart Racing. Some big numbers. Yeager just dropped off the wheel. It was really fascinating to see that heat map. I love seeing it out there. It gives you a real indication, a real impression of the best place to sit behind a rider, and how more difficult it is when you drop right off. But really lovely to see that deployed, but the gap starting to come down at 3.5 seconds. Ben Russell on the front for Wahoo Lacole now. Martin's in the center of that screen. Great bit of picture-in-picture action, but a gap has just opened up between our two leaders. Mel on the front. Yeager looking like he's struggling to stay in contact, Dave, and dropping away. It looks like he will come back to the bunch as we head ever nearer this sprint.
Martin Mertens, what a classic rider in the ZRL, but here we go. It looks like Russell's going to make the catch. These guys are pinning it right now, very active off the front of this race, and I'm a little surprised to see that these two were caught, and Russell just goes right by them, as it doesn't look like he wants to get in the boat and row with these guys. And here we go. Wahoo Lacole, a team with a great trajectory right now. He's making huge watts out here, and he's even going to throw a little bit more at it. So Ben Russell having his impact on the race. Again, sprint arch at 34.7K, where there's 10 points waiting for the first rider over the line.
Well, Ben Russell looks like he's in his garage there, with his garage door just open ever so slightly. The cool October air cooling him down. 400 watts, 6.3 watts a kilo, real high RPM as well. Rather than using that high torque, low cadence, he's pedaling really beautifully here, as if he was on the track. But he is going to be joined by a couple of riders who in turn aren't too far in front of the bunch just behind. It is Morgan and Mel. Mel still just off the front there, but a good effort there by Russell, but it was to come to nothing as we look at Morgan on the front for Deepak Elite. Ben Russell just behind for Wahoo Lacole, but Morgan drops back. But this course certainly lends itself to a few riders really trying to try their hand. A little bit of a view of Ed Morgan there. Reaches across, makes sure that he's hydrated. Keeping an eye on that screen. Let's give this lad a few more ride-ons. He's only got 6. Fire up those apps. As I said before, it's all about the community. Get involved. Support these riders. It really does mean a lot to them.
I don't want to sleep on Beast Mode presented by Rose out here. Christoph Thiem has done a great job of using his resources up to this point. Big group together right now, Matt. I'm a little surprised to see this many riders with their heads still above the water. But this is it. We are rapidly coming up on what's going to be a sprint that leads us into the final few chess pieces left on the board. We'll start moving them around and find out what team is going to make their mark here in the second of 6 races that make up this season of ZRL. And it is in full effect right now. This is Christoph that we're joining here as he gets up out of the saddle, going to the whip right now. And you can see the heart rate for most of these guys has been sitting right around 160, maybe even a little lower than that. So they've still got plenty left to give. Lot still in the tank here, Matt, which just tells me that this last trip up Petit KOM is going to be insane.
It's this little triptych of efforts that they're going to have to make. A steady effort from the finish line. A couple of little attacks. In fact, we've had 3 or 4 tentative little moves. The most significant is, of course, the American-Norwegian duo. And only a few Ks now towards this sprint. And that's when things really start to get set up. But Dave, interestingly, we had a group off the back by 20 seconds. The pace has definitely lessened. The group now has swelled to 50 riders out in front. It was down to 35. We now have 50 riders back in front. It's not often that we see groups who are detached get back on, but they clearly had a common interest. The gap was hovering around 50 seconds, but the group has now swelled. But looking at what we've already seen in this race and the difficulties, particularly in relation to the Petit climb, I do think this group will fracture significantly on that final climb as we get another look at Ollie Jones. Forwards were to gather the winner, of course. Jones rolling that gear. Got that damp towel around his neck to keep himself cool. We're all getting very used to his pain cave. That's his garage as well. Of course, it is the other side of the world. Another wonderful illustration of the connectivity of Zwift, how it brings riders together from all over the world. There's nothing quite like it. It is remarkable. And of course, if you fancy it, if you're not already signed up for community teams, can race on these courses as well, Dave, because the community teams are where you get to see the stars of esports in their infancy, the stars of the future.
Yeah, Leonard Tugels is a great example of that, Matt. It was season 3 of ZRL where he had a breakthrough ride on that BZR Sports Solid team, soloing away to win by almost a minute that day. Yeah. This is our sprint that we've got going on right now.
Indeed, Van den Dee is on the front. Ollie Jones, Kirkmare. Kirkmare looks like it's Vujasan, though, emerges very, very late, just in front of the Austrian. Vujasan from Canyon Esports takes that one from Kirkmare. Jones in third, so good scoring there from Canyon Esports. Van den Eckhout is in fourth for Cryo. Tienberg for Beast Mode in fifth. Then we have Fawcett, Noren and Morgan. That is your top 8 riders. Yeah, sorry to have teed you up there, Dave. The sprint came on us very, very quickly indeed. But good riding by the two superstars of esports, Vujasan and Jones there. That sprint's out of the way. A good lot of points. There's more points, remember, on offer for the sprints than the King of the Mountains. So good riding by Canyon there.
Yeah, red alert, red alert. This is a big moment as a possible charge is happening at the front. Look at next now. They've assembled 4 riders, and it looks like they're going to give it a go. And all hands on deck, no doubt about it. I think all of the riders realize that. And, Matt, you make a good point. Having a solid director sportif for your team makes a huge difference on a day like today, as we're going to take a look at. This is, again, Paul Odland, the New Zealander on World Elite Zwifters Oral 7. This is a team that's hungry to make their mark out here today. This is the second attack that we've seen from Paul.
Yeah, must be feeling very, very good. It's only about 5 minutes ago since that previous attack. So hard to maintain the type of power you need to sustain out in front. And perhaps he's thinking of just this next King of the Mountains. That's coming up very, very shortly indeed. These 3 points on offerings, well, the points on offer come in very, very quick succession. There's only 1.5 kilometers between the aqueduct climb and the sprint, and then 3.5 k's between the 2 climbs. So Odin is on the lower slopes here. He'll be going through the timing chip, as it were, on the bottom of this climb. There it is. So straight into the bottom of this climb. He's got a gap of 2.3 seconds. This climb only short, 400 meters, but only 300 meters of it are uphill. Will swing right, and then the road flattens completely to go through the arch. He's holding steady here, though. World Elite Zwifters, how by Oral 7? He's looking good. Let's pan back a little bit. 1.7 seconds. I fear that he might get caught because he's got some big riders coming up. Lorio looking very, very good indeed from Finland, and Wahoo Lakol. He's won one before, but Lorio's going to take this. Well, looking very, very good indeed. Odin is holding on, but Vidal Mel and Leonard Tugels are coming up as well. But what a ride there by the finish rider. That's two on this climb. Lorio takes maximum points and looks to me to be continuing his effort over the top. Tugels in second. Brian Duffy Jr. there is in third, and Vidal Mel of Movistar rounding out the top 4.
Well, I have to say that Teppo has made his mark in this race. As you can see, the Wahoo Lakol rider has got to be pretty chuffed about the effort he's making. But there is one of my top 3 riders to win this race outright here today, that being Brian Duffy Jr. in the green and black jersey here for the next team as we go in cam with Teppo. Teppo looks like a fun guy to ride with, no doubt about it. There's a lot going on there, a lot to take in or unpack, as they say, but you can see that effort has been significant on Teppo Lorio, but he's hanging on to this group. All right, open up the throttle, boys, because we are fully galloping. Let's go back and take a look one more time at the top of the aqueduct.
Yeah, Teppo Lorio came through. There he is. He dropped the burrito, so great. Just to snap the elastic, undraftable for a radius of 2.5 meters. For a period of 10 seconds. Perfect timing, and carried that momentum, that real speed onto this flat section, and he had several lengths on anybody else. It was Vidal Mel who eventually crossed the line in second place for Movistar, but 2 from 2 for Tepolorio. And as you said, he does look like he's a lot of fun and happy to suffer for his craft and score some decent points for Wahoo Lacole, who have 3 riders in this group: Gil Davis, Loriot himself, and Ben Russell as well. So a good day so far for Wahoo Lacole. But next up on the menu in a couple of K's time is the Petit Climb. There is the situation on the road. So good night so far, Dave, for Canyon Esports with 27. Kirkmayer having a better night than last week in second with a level equal on points with Wahoo Lacole. World Elite Zwifters with 10, same points as Team Swedish Zwifters. Then we have Beast Mode, BZR, Zwift Warriors, Toyota, and Fusion. So double the points, or more than double the points for Canyon Esports today. They've been very, very consistent, Dave.
It's almost impossible to imagine how you beat them today. I mean, if Next and Short is going to do that, they're going to not only have to win the race, they're probably going to have to put, in my estimation, 3 riders in the top 7 to do it. So outstanding job. I guess it's truly, Matt, Canyon Esports being Canyon Esports. This is their modus operandi. It's what they do. Sometimes they lay back a little bit when you talk about the bonus sprints or the KOMs, but today it's just full throttle. So I see Bruce Bird, a rider there, another one of the Canadians that represents very, very well out here for the draft team, as we'll go in camera with Bird. Bruce Bird is notorious for late race attacks. They always put a little bit of sting in the legs, and one day it's going to be the Bird's day, no doubt about it. But right now it looks like Stefan Kirkmeyer is moving himself up to the front. These guys are bracing themselves, Matt, as we are rapidly coming back up on this decisive final trip up Petit KOM. I don't think Petit, I would call it middle KOM, because this is nothing small about it.
Definitely. I think the word for French for middle or average is moyenne. So I think we should always rename it, Dave, the moyenne climb. Because, you know, looking at the face of these riders, looking at the watts they're putting out, looking at the commitment that they are laying down, it's anything but petit, that is for sure. But bit of an update in relation to the composition of this group out in front. After that foray, that little attack for the points on the Aqueduct climb, the group has reduced a little bit. We've now got 45 riders in this front group. So 5 riders dropped as a result of those stinging, sharp, powerful accelerations on the Aqueduct climb. And we're now looking PIP, picture in picture at Matthias de Roos, 3.4 watts a kilo, mops his brow, has opted to dispense with a top heart rate monitor and bibs is all Matthias de Roos needs to occupy his position in the middle of this group. The kilometres are ticking down, well under 7 kilometres to go. The climb itself, remember, 2.7 kilometres long. It is actually one of the hardest courses in this particular season. A lot of flowy rolling courses we've got. It's going to be a really interesting season of races. Nothing super, super hilly. And the proposition tonight is one of the hilliest. Total elevation gain tonight of 310 metres and one of the longest races too, 46.64. But I think, Dave, looking at the timings, we could just potentially nip under the hour.
Well, the flight of the Concords used to talk about business time. Well, that's where we're at, Matt. No doubt about it. Stefan Kirkmeyer near the front. So, you know, at the beginning of the race, we noticed Stefan with that anvil, but now he's looking to light a fuse out here. And again, Stefan Kirkmeyer there right up on the front row. Martin Mertens here, the Toyota Cryo rider that is absolutely a force to be reckoned with. I mean, it's a who's who. Jasper Peredains, he's got the power numbers and he can back it up out here. Leonard Tugel's also one of the riders to watch. It's nice to see Ollie Jones, 4th place at the World Championships. This is a climb that suits Ollie, Matt. The forward KOM that was the feature climb in the World Championships, not all that different than the climb that they're about to hit here. It's all about to go down in the ZRL. Today is a big, big day, and we are now locked and loaded. This is not a drill as we go to St. Louis, Missouri, right in the heartland of America, to pick up Spencer Segovich, a hard-working rider, and he's right there. Look at Canyon, 3 sitting up on the front right now.
Yeah, Canyon looking very, very good indeed. Segovich, Jones, Vuyasan 8th last week, the only rider in the top 10. They're looking to make amends today, that is for sure. And they're going about it very, very well. They're leading on points so far. Remember, at the top of this climb, we've got 5, 3, 2 and 1 points, and only 3.2 kilometres later, 50 points for the win. So Canyon do have 3 riders in the mix there. Several riders as well from Movistar. Brian Duffy Jr. moving to the front now for Next Esports, powered by Insured, 6.5 watts a kilo. Riason not too far away. Van Diemen now rolls to the front. This is a good little move by Van Diemen, 7 watts a kilo, and the Dutchman, he's attacked already today. He's starting to go clear. This is the steepest part of the climb. Remember, no power-ups, no feather power-ups, should I say, on this climb. On this race, should I say, it's only the anvil, the breakaway burrito, and the draft. But Van Diemen now is churning his way up this climb, still around 1,500 meters of the climb, and the bunch starting to fragment. There is the draft heat map, and nobody at the moment in his draft, but he's riding very, very strongly indeed. 7 watts a kilo now, Dave, and he's storming up this climb, but not managing to open up too big a gap. 1.5 seconds right now.
Matt, I'm looking at the data and I am stunned, but it looks like Kiel Power is not in this group, which is a game changer. He comes in on paper as the rider who puts the biggest numbers up on the board, and he is sitting 50th, so not in this group. Leonard Tugels is going to be happy to hear that, as his impact will be even greater right now for the BZR Sports Solid team, as Leonard Tugels has hit out for the Petit KOM.
Tugels pretty much going in exactly the same spot he did last lap. He carried on his effort over the top. Tugels looking good. He's gapped Van Diemen. 3 seconds now to Brian Duffy Jr., Marus, Parians, Buyasan, Talbot, Barnes, Martins, and Messinio are the riders behind. 8 watts a kilo and counting. We've got the cobbles to come up. The gradient will relent ever so slightly on this bend down to around 1%. There it is, top right of your screen. That's the stats. Off the cobbles onto a little bit more tarmac. 2 more hairpins, and he's at the top of this climb. And Dave, he is opening up a decent gap. Still Van Diemen in between, but now 5 seconds on the rest of the field, the remnants of the field, but it's been shattered on these slopes.
Oh, to make these numbers, there are folks in hospital right now who are feeling less pain passing a kidney stone than Leonard Tugels is on the front. This is what you call scraping the bottom of the barrel. As Tugels right now, Matt, we look at the 8 different hairpins, checking boxes one at a time. But here comes Pim. Here comes Pim Van Diemen. There's the arch. Tugels is just going to get, wow, we'll have to go back and look at the back end API to see who was the first over the line there. Very, very close. I think I'm going to give it to Van Diemen with a late surge. But either way, those points have been scored. 5 for the first man over the line, 3 for second. We'll put those in the bank and now start charging to the finish line. Matt, this is it. Full gas now with about, let's call it 4K to go. Little less.
Well, Tugels, as we said before, has ridden at Pro Conti level in the past. He knows how to put those big efforts in, but Van Diemen just took the points. It's very close that day, as you called. 3 points to Tugels, 2 to Jamrozic, and 1 to Laudio. But look at the gap now, 2 seconds for Tugels and Van Diemen. Both riders from the lowlands. Both riders working well together. The 28-year-old is on the front at the moment. As you said, decorated as a pro. The rider's just coming up behind now. A couple of anvils are being dropped. Still a reasonably sized group at the front here. Let's have a quick look before the action commences at the back end of this race. Let's have a quick look at an action replay of that climb, just to see that action one more time before we get into the sharp end. Remember, only 2.8 Ks to go of this race.
This is going to be the move from Pim Van Diemen here, just coming up and over the top to take the maximum bonification here. Leonard Tugels will still hold on and collect 3 points. Well, that's the final battle before this commences. The finale has now arrived. There's another look at that final KOM. Last chance to pick up points. Last chance for gas, as they say, as they'll have got 1 power-up there as well. We'll see who's going to have that very valuable, well, the burrito or the van are the 2 that you're going to be looking for now. At this point, Matt, we're just coming up on 2K to go. Big group together.
Yeah, it's a big group together. And the amount of riders in this group, yeah, it's just swelled a little bit. Still at least 25, 30 riders in that group. In fact, let's have a little look now. In fact, we only have 27 riders in this front group. And we have Gavin Dempster just moving to the front. We haven't seen Gavin Dempster much at all today. He's hidden in this, amidst this bunch. It looks like he's riding as ever in his bathroom. 1.6k to go. This is the last chance to really optimize the use of an anvil. Look at the top right. That's the gradient. -7% on this downhill section. Gavin Dempster looking good in the middle of this group. 1,300 meters to go and counting. We're going to pass through the Flamme Rouge very, very shortly. Who is going to take the victory here from this group of around 25, 26 riders? The road starts to flatten. The speed drops ever so slightly. No more aero tucks. Dave, 1 kilometer to go.
Well, if he can get a good run at it, Thomas Thrall can make almost 18 watts per kilo in the sprint. That's Mario Cipollini type numbers. So, I mean, if he can get good positioning, Thrall's going to be incredibly dangerous. Brian Duffy Jr. comes to mind. This is it. We're going to find out who gets to lick their plate clean today in France.
Ollie Jones just on the front. Jambrosic there. Martins, Odlin, Dempster as well. The Scot, remember the finish line opens up with only about 150 meters to go. We've got another attack from World Elite Zwifters. Odlin goes clear. Well, Massinio, should I say. Massinio with that amazing hair has gone clear. Half a second, 12 watts a kilo for this man. This is quite amazing. Massinio in front. Leonardo Massinio of World Elite Zwifters. Thrall from Canada over the top. Kirkman behind. Kirkman draws level. Kirkman goes past Thrall. Kirkman from Austria takes it on the line. Kirkmare take it. What a ride by Stefan Kirkmare of Kirkmare E Racing Team. That was absolutely superb. Kirkmare takes it from Thrall, and James Barnes nips through for third place. But look at what it means to this man. Dave, we talked about it at the top of the show. Disappointment turns to joy.
This is huge. Stefan Kirkmaier is truly a lifestyle. This man has built a franchise around his Kirkmaier esports team. It can't be any sweeter than what it is right now for the Austrian rider, Stefan Kirkmaier. You know, this was a big, big one for that man. Great job, Stefan.
Well, there we go. Confirmation, Dave. We both shouted ourselves. That was an exciting, thrilling finale. But it is the Austrian Stefan Kirkmaier who takes the win. Look at the numbers, 4.8 watts a kilo. Super ride from the Canadian from the Next Esports team. In second, third place, James Barnes. Another podium for him. Ollie Jones, the first home from Canyon Esports. Then we have Matthias de Roos of BZR. And the Spoldegger is there in sixth. Brian Duffy Jr. making it 3 in the top 10 for Next Esports. Riosan Guld Dunrosic rounding out the top 10. Let's have a quick look at page 2. Mercedes after that early attack with that wonderful afro hair in 11th. Eddie Hool is in 12th. Villamel of Movistar 13th. Then we have Larson, Nair, Dempster, Turgles, Van Diemen, Christiep and David Tolbert of Saris rounding out the top 20. Dave, before we throw back to the studio, last word from you, sir.
Yeah, as all the dust settles, I think Next, presented by Insured, did it. We were talking about they needed to get 3 in the top 6. Well, I think they got 3 in the top 7. That's close enough to what I was talking about. This is a team sport. And Next, presented by Insured, I think that they really showed their depth here today. Even losing Kiel Power, they were still able, in my estimation, to deliver the goods. What a ride out there today. This is a fantastic course. Thanks a lot, Matt. I'll throw it back to you.
Well, thanks very much indeed, Dave. I do believe we'll be popping back to the studio very shortly indeed. But that certainly was. We had a spectacular racing across the board in round 2 of the ZRL Zwift Racing League. Casse surely did deliver as we continue to see riders crossing the line here. And it was just under the hour. It was, in fact, 59.15. There's another little shot of the finishing straight. 200 metres to go. We still can't actually see the finishing line until now. Thrall. Good timing by the Canadian. But just look at this. And look, Dave, as well, at the draft being used there just at the right time. So not only delivering the power, but the skill and the timing to drop the power up just at the right time. Completely and utterly optimized.
I have to say that's incredible that he's able to make that 17 watts per kilo and still deploy the power up. Stefan Kirkmaier, I would have to say a command performance out there today. And again, how about James Barnes? He's got a win and a third place now, looking at our preliminary results out here today. So Barnes has been absolutely en fuego along with his Next team.
The riders continue.
Well, another cracking race there. Fair play to Stefan Kirchmeier. That was some sprint finish. We'll dissect it a little more later on with some full results. I'd say the race followed a fairly similar pattern to the women's, a little less selective early on. That was a much bigger group at the end of lap 1, 35 as opposed to 20. More riders then came and joined them again before that hectic finale at the end of lap 2. Again, though, still a big bunch contesting the finish. Hannah is back with me in the studio. Hannah, what did you make of that? We'll start with the men's race, first of all.
Yeah, it was surprisingly larger, that group, than I anticipated it to be. I thought it would be much more whittled down. We did see it was very active. They weren't just waiting for the intermediate sprint or the king of the mountains. They were going on that flat running, the 12-kilometre pan flat section where riders were trying their luck to try and gain a gap. And a number of riders did so, didn't they, to try and break things up and try and go for a long one. So for me, going into that finish, it was much larger and in the end, more or less a bunch sprint. But the climb did do some damage. A few riders were getting tailed off and got themselves back on that descent.
They did indeed. Right, we can head over to the results now. So we've got the team standings. You've seen the individuals. Here we go. Next Esports, powered by Insured, take the victory for the second week running. Quite a comfortable margin, actually, over Canyon Esports. We've got the Kirchmeier E-Racing team, Stefan Kirchmeier's eponymous racing team there, and then BZR Sports Solid in 4th, and then joined 4th, in fact, actually, sorry, with the Movistar team. So yeah, like I said, second week running, Canyon Esports had a bit of a lead going into that final. They'd obviously mopped up a few more intermediate sprint points than Next Esports, but again, the finishing power of Next Esports, powered by Insured, 3 riders, sorry, in the top 7. That's pretty good going, isn't it, Hannah?
I was just going to say, it shows that it's not all just down to those intermediate points that the riders can collect. The finish is vital to make sure that you have the strength in numbers with as many riders as you possibly can from your team scoring highly. It might not equate to the individual victory on the evening, but to place 3 in the top 10 gave Next Esports, powered by Insured, the victory there in the team classification. So it just shows, although Canyon had such a large lead earlier on, it was overhauled in the end.
Yeah, I mean, there weren't many points on offer for those KOMs, were there? Just 5 for the first across the line. And not want to take anything away from Stefan Kirchmeier, but Tom Thrall, great second place, but also James Barnes, winner in week 1. I actually caught up with him earlier on today. Unfortunately, we didn't have time between the races to show you the interview, but he was a debutant in the Premier Division last week, and here he is back to back. Although apparently, actually, we can hear that interview. We've got it now. If we can head over to James Barnes. This was filmed before the race today.
Hey, I'm James Barnes. I'm from South Africa, living in Auckland, New Zealand. I ride for Next, powered by Insured.
So, James, last week you took a pretty awesome personal victory and led it home for the team as well. Can you talk through your tactics for the race?
Yeah, like the tactics in terms of, we'd been discussing it, I'd say probably at least over a week before, and then we'd also done quite a few team rides beforehand. So we'd done a lot of homework in terms of beforehand, a lot of prep for it. We'd ridden the course a few times as a team and also done a few pre-races on that course as well, so that we're able to scope out the finish, particularly because we knew it would be very tricky, A, with that descent, and then B, with there's like a little bump, literally 400 meters from the end, so your timing is absolutely crucial. You know, I never thought I would take this.